actor from Manorcunningham, Andrew McCracken, who is currently playing the lead role on stage in Dublin in a new play called The Safety Catch. And it's about the legendary motorcycle road racing Dunlop family. The play is actually transferring to the Playhouse in Derry for one night this Friday night. And the story of the Dunlop family features in this play, and it's a story that's well known to many of us. But also, the basis of the play is really the world of motorcycle racing. And Joey Dunlop died in a crash at the age of 48. His brother Robert was similarly killed at the age of 47. And Robert's son William died at the age of just 32. So in this play, a lifelong friend of Robert's is trying to persuade Robert's other son, Michael, to give up racing and retire. And Andrew plays Michael in this play. It's called The Safety Catch, and I'm delighted now that Andrew joins us on the line, and we're streaming live as well if you want to have a look. And Andrew, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Good. This play is getting good reviews, and it's a subject. It's an area, I suppose, that a lot of people will be familiar with, and the story of the Dunlop family. And it's sad and fascinating in an equal measure, but it gives us, in a way, an insight into the mind of members of the family who just felt compelled to race and at great risk to themselves.
Yeah, it's amazing when we have been performing the show. You have people who are maybe from motorbike racing families, so their families continue to race on the roads, or others are just motorbike enthusiasts. And that thing that keeps coming out in conversation is that they can't imagine not doing it. And even though they know the risks, especially those who race on the roads, the idea of stepping away means they lose a part of themselves. And the kind of core question that Nick Snow, who wrote the play, always brought himself back to when he was writing was, is the risk worth the reward? And I think for the Dunlops, that idea of risk everything, risk your life, but also you could be the greatest of all time, is at the heart of the play. And if you gave up this thing, would Michael quit being who he is kind of something I as an actor had to keep on questioning. So yeah, like, it is a really fascinating insight into the world of it, but also the mindset of people who are racing on the roads.
And in a way, you had to get into that mindset because it was all about the bike and the road and the speed and the sport, and it was all sort of a drug, really. And you had to, in this, you have to position yourself in there and put yourself in that position.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny, our first show, we originally did the show down in Manorhamilton in County Leitrim. So we had an initial run back in May 2022, and there was an audience member came up to me after, and he was like, "Do you race? Are you a motorbike racer yourself?" And I was, "No, I've never." Like, I've been around the Northwest 200 a good bit, but a push bike is the length of my experience on bikes, and he couldn't believe it. He couldn't get his head around it. Now, that was a great compliment for me,
Yeah.
but I think it gives you again an insight into what it means to people, that the amount of audience members that have come up and gone, that's it. The way that's described is exactly what it's like to be on a bike. So it's a real fascinating insight. I mean, my mum wouldn't like me to say it, but I reckon I'll be interested in getting a wee 125 just to, method acting. Go Daniel Day-Lewis on it.
But you have been to some of these races, have you, to experience them?
Yeah, so I've been to the Northwest 200 when I was growing up. Although my parents live in Manorcunningham now, and I've been around it. I was from the North Coast, so I grew up in and around Portrush, Coleraine when I was a teenager and so on. So it was a big part of my day-to-day, well, not my day-to-day life, but every year you couldn't get round certain roundabouts and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I've kind of been brought up and going, you go into Ballymoney and the Joey Dunlop Leisure Centre's there, and the Memorial Gardens there, and Joey's Bar's there. So growing up in and around Coleraine, Ballymoney, all those places, the Dunlops are a big part of the fabric of the area. It's a big part of their story. So even people who don't race motorbikes or aren't interested in motorbikes know that story of that family. So it was a real privilege to get the chance to play this this part and have the chance to really put my community on stage.
In a way, it's a role you are meant to play.
Well,
There's obviously in the play there's parallels drawn between the Dunlops and the families of Greek tragedies, and I don't know if it's fair, but that's the way it's outlined in the play, and your character as well. There's obviously a real conflict going on. Should he or shouldn't he? All too aware of the risks, but it's racing. It's in my blood. So you address this with the other characters, but you also address the audience.
yeah, well, so there's two actors in the play. So it's myself and another actor called Fra Gunn. So Fra's role is much more interacting with the audience, and I interact much more with Fra. But Fra, he plays Liam Beckett, who is a commentator on the roads, was Robert Dunlop's mechanic, used to manage football, he used to manage Coleraine and Institute football clubs. Fun little fact for you. But Fra's character addresses the audience and brings in that comparison to the Greek myth. And I think it's a really interesting thing because a lot of people would go, oh, the show is just about motorbikes, but it's a real show that covers life, it covers death, it covers doing what you love and whether, as I say, risk is worth the reward. So those characters in Greek myth who their father fought in the field in a battle and they died, and then their uncle took up the sword and they take up the sword. And so that parallel, it's not necessarily, I think, unfair, because actually for each of these family members, they choose whether they go back on the road, whether they go back on the field. And the show at the end of the day deals with grief and trauma and whether you can overcome it. Now, there is comedy in it, so there's a few laughs. So even if that sounds like, oh, could you do that? We get a good few laughs as well from it, but it's that wrestle that keeps going on between whether his destiny is to keep on racing or not. And Greek tragedies often explore that, is kind of, is it nature or is it nurture or is it a combination of the two?
It's said in a shed. The two of you are having this conversation in to the backdrop of a shed, which is almost like an atypical male setting. But there's also, is there a sequence towards the end that involves a road race, and how is that handled?
Well, I mean, you have to come along to the Derry Playhouse on the 25th of November at 8 p.m. to find out.
Yeah.
But yes, so there's a bike on the stage. So we've been generously given a bike by a road racer. So that throughout the play, Michael's working on this bike. And as we kind of get towards the end of the play, the choices are being made whether he's going to carry on racing or not. So all I can say is there's some great music, there's some interesting video tricks and all, and then there's myself on the bike. So you have to find out to see how those things all come together
And there's
on Friday night.
There's 3 helmets on stage as well.
Yes, so there's, I don't want to give away too much, but yes, there's 3 helmets that sit throughout the play in a different place, and they kind of move towards the end of the play. But each of them represents one of his family members who's passed away. And it's that idea that throughout the play, there's this, throughout all of the conversations, throughout all of the debate, throughout all of the wrestling through this question, behind Michael, there's always the helmets, there's always the memories, there's always the need for his family to give him advice, to give him counsel as what the best thing to do is. And again, that's quite Greek tragic. It's quite a epic story for what is a very local story.
Well, I think you've explained it really well, and you've certainly whet the appetite. So if anyone wants to go along, there's still a few tickets available for the Playhouse in Derry, one night only this Friday, and it's transferring from Dublin. It's called The Safety Catch. Andrew, it's been a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Have a good day.
New this week in Home Store and More. All our Christmas table linen is half price. That's right.